innovation has two aspects: novelty and appropriateness. If we remove one of these two things, it is not an innovation. But defining what is appropriate is based on values. Novelty one can create. Disney World is the novelty thing. When you meet 6 foot tall Mickey Mouse shaking hand with your child, that is like wow experience. So appropriateness and novelty both are making the innovation. However, when we think about a new innovation, we have to think about I want this because we have this because, right? Because the conventional RCC is bad for the environment, because the brick kilns kind of creating local pollution. All this because lead to a desire to create a solution. This is where we should not end. There is another side of it. If this is the possible solution A, possible solution B, possible solution C, and now let me look at the therefore of it, the consequences of solution A, B, and C. We have to understand the consequences. So for example, we create paver blocks out of plastic waste, right? And everybody I know, and I also to a certain degree accept that that is some better cycling of plastic waste. And we stopped at the solution. We implemented. Science and Shivam, Satyam and Shivam both require us that we understand the consequences of that. Not today, but 10 years, 100 years from today. And that is the part that is missing in innovations. We do not think of consequences. We adopt innovation because it is so good and it solves the current problem. But we are the only species who is capable of creating 2 or 3 more problems while solving one. No other species is capable of doing that.
This question is from Ketan Tatu. Is concretization of riverbanks, especially Sabarmati in Ahmedabad for riverfront projects, a wise approach? People defend it by saying that it reduces flood events in the cities, create great opportunities, and bring in beautification. Yeah.
I know for a fact that Ketanji is asking this question for the benefit of the larger audience. He himself has a PhD in ecology. He is a good colleague and friend of mine. I'm very honored that he is here today to listen to go through my presentation. See, the riverfront development is not a new idea. If it were a new idea, then we wouldn't have Godavari riverfront in Nashik or Varanasi Ganga front. Those were made for at a different era in different stage in life. Currently, I always try to tell and try to bring out from the students what do they value. Design for the values first. If one, it doesn't mean that we cannot value economic growth. We can value that too. But as the diagram said, economy is a subset of community, and community and economy are subsets of environment or the natural system. So, speaking of Sabarmati riverfront development, it was devised not for the river, but for the economic development and image of the city of Ahmedabad. Many of us already know that the water that we see in the riverfront development is imported from Narmada Canal. That water comes from the Sardar Sarovar Dam, about 250 kilometers or 200 kilometers away from Ahmedabad. So, yes, if you have values that say that we'll reclaim part of the dry bed of bank of Vishwa or the Sabarmati River, we'll reclaim it by putting soil, and they've done diaphragm walls. First wall of RCC at the water level, and then at the promenade level another wall. These are 8 to 12 meter long high walls. Imagine the amount of concrete that is used, the amount of, and it has displaced many things. So concretization is, or the riverfront development as we understand that now, as it is defined by that one particular firm which is stamping that model in other cities also. So that shows the value of that firm, the values that they believe and the way they want to cater to the power that be. They are also environmental planners. They also know environmental sciences. But they choose not to put as much emphasis on that. So when that model came to Vadodara, which is a whole another story, we, a few dozen, 1 dozen people or so, we came together and we protested. And that was missing from Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is a very good city in terms of its institutions, its kind of way of promoting education and all that. We have NID there, we have IIM there. But when it comes to coming together, organizing, and fighting against the system, both through soft advocacy and hard advocacy, my experience of last 30 years in this kind of activities tells me that Ahmedabad doesn't have that in it anymore. They cater to the power as a society. I'm not talking about few individuals. Few individuals are very courageous people. Ketan Tatu is one of them. But the point is, we came together in Vadodara. We went to National Green Tribunal. We won the case. And in water alternatives, there is an international research journal called Water Alternatives. An article by my friend and colleague Neha Sarwate and me, co-authored together, has come out on this whole story of people's intercession in this process. So that will give a good idea about how people coming together can make a difference and we stop that famous firm and a so-called dream project of whatever power that be. And we are still fighting it, and we are still working with creating alternatives or convincing them to not do certain things, but it is an uphill battle. But never give up. Patience, perseverance, and commitment are necessary.
Fantastic, sir. This thought process is much needed across the country, or rather the entire society, especially we in India with so many brilliant people like you. We need to get together. And your thought process is in directing and creating awareness is fantastic. Another question, again, it might be a repetition, but from Akash Babu, we're causing great harm to ecology from our vantage point. How can we be part of a sustainable, scalable solution for impact?
Right. And that is what my examples were trying to do. So let us start with one individual. Our system requires that development requires some kind of ownership. So we have property card, we have maps that say that this whatever is belonging owned by this particular person. So that is a small patch in the larger system. So when you look at that patch and say that, oh, ये तो मेरी property, I can do anything on this. Yes, and that is what the models are showing all around. So before a plot, the plot is part of a larger other context. That other context is part of other context. So the plot is part of a local ecosystem. The local ecosystem is part of a regional landscape, and so on. And once we find the pattern of patches and corridors, the way I try to explain through the map of Vishamdri watershed and Vadodara city, if we know that these are important things for our survival, whether it is IIM campus, a dry arid region in Jodhpur, or whether it is a project in heavy rainfall area, we can continue to do something so that whatever word we use, sustainable or more much, I use the word more mature approach. Maturity is when we understand the pain of the other, empathize, and act accordingly. So ecological sciences teach us to do that. That is why Satyam, Shivam, and the resulting Sundram.
This is again a question from Mr. Ketan Tatu. Are the roots of ecological chaos in today's world lie predominantly in man's psychological insecurities that compel him for super fast economic and technological development?
No, no. It is easy to kind of disconnect ourselves and say that I'm not saying no to his basic premise. What I'm saying no to is the story that we have been told. That's why I use the word story. Our, our, our species, we can talk about, our primary psychological need are two: psychological, not social psychological, but psychological. One, Ketan Tatuji knows Gujarati, but Shivaniji, do you know?
No, I think he's definitely asked that question for the audience to know. So you must speak in English.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying
I
to
don't
make a point.
understand Gujarati.
No,
I
no,
don't.
no, no. No, that's fine. So those people who do not understand Gujarati, અને હવે હું જે કંઈ પણ થોડું ગુજરાતીમાં બોલીશ, તો then it won't make sense. And once it doesn't make sense, we get frustrated. If you start talking in Telugu, it won't make sense to me because I don't understand that. So making sense is a primary psychological need. The second most important need add is to get involved, be engaged with something. If we feel neglected, if we feel that we do not belong, if we move in an environment where we think that, oh, this is so boring, I don't want to go for a stroll. So we don't engage, whether it is through environment or societal organization and values. So making sense and involvement are not my words. These are I learned from environmental psychology, my teachers, Rachel Kaplan and Stephen Kaplan. And their book, Cognition and Environment, is a great book for beginners. They have written 4 or 5 books. The first one is called Humanscapes. It is a collection of essays, Humanscapes. The second book is called Cognition and Environment. And the third book is called The Experience of Nature. And the fourth book is called With People in Mind. I'll repeat those names: Humanscapes, Cognition and Environment, Experience of Nature, with People in Mind. With people in mind is especially for designers. How one can apply environmental psychological principles and concepts to design better spaces. So my practice is not just about ecology, it is also about environmental psychology, application of human ecology into planning decision making. Oh, Ketanji, I think I have not answered your question, but the short answer is that these insecurities result because of this psychological need we have, that it doesn't make sense and we are not involved. And that then converts into a reaction which is in a way counterproductive for our own self as well as for the society or organization we are part of.
Mr. Mayur.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Mayur Shah from Vadodara, and I am a
Hello.
technology solution enthusiast. My question is more on technology and, of course, environment friendly, which I am always focused on it. How far you see green buildings technology helps our landscapes and the change? Because when we see the countries like Germany, China, and other overseas countries, they are opting this to support net zero, as well as the support the climate change and ecology. So please let me know your insight on this.
I share your interest and I also share the degree of uncertainty or dissonance that you are feeling about the way we are progressing. See, human beings are made to innovate, but innovation has 2 aspects: novelty and appropriateness. If we remove one of these 2 things, it is not an innovation. But defining what is appropriate is based on values. Novelty one can create. Disney World is the novelty thing. When you meet 6 foot tall Mickey Mouse shaking hand with your child, that is like wow experience. So innovation wise, in terms of building materials, nowadays, as you perhaps know already, I mean, I'm sure you know, we have innovated with different materials. So lightweight brick, the different kind of fly ash mixed kind of bricks and construction blocks that we are making. Netherlands and other European countries have also made bricks where we can grow fungus, or we can grow moss, not fungus. We can grow moss. So it is supporting a micro level, micro habitat level values and certain advantages in terms of comfort and all that. So appropriateness and innovation, novelty, both are making the innovation. However, when we think about a new innovation, we have to think about, I want this because we have this because, right? Because the conventional RCC is bad for the environment, because the brick kilns kind of creating local pollution. All this because lead to a desire to create a solution. This is where we should not end. There is another side of it. This is the possible solution A, possible solution B, possible solution C. And now let me look at the therefore of it, the consequences of solution A, B, and C. We have to understand the consequences. So, for example, we create paver blocks out of plastic waste, right? And everybody I know, and I also to a certain degree accept that there is some better cycling of plastic waste. And we stopped at the solution. We implemented. Science and Shivam, Satyam and Shivam both require us that we understand the consequences of that. Not today, but 10 years, 100 years from today. And that is the part that is missing in innovations.
Yeah,
it does And therefore, we are very quick in getting enamored by innovation. Oh, wow, let us do that. Only when we can create an alternative material with renewable resource without compromising the food production and other things, I can go with this idea of innovations for building materials and designs. So there is a new thing that has come out and it is by like by everybody. Collect to have drinking water in dry arid regions through atmosphere, and everybody is uploading because it is like solving the drinking water problem in the arid region, poor people. Da, 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 da. So we need this because, and this is the solution. Now we need this. This is the solution. Consequences. If we suck up all the moisture through our innovation, understand the local weather pattern and other consideration and other beings who are dependent upon that moisture, even in that arid region. We do not think of consequences. We adopt innovation because it is so good and it solves the current problem. But we are the only species who is capable of creating two or three more problems while solving one. No other species is capable of doing that.
Fantastic, sir.
Great, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah. And I
Thank you,
would like to
Mayurji.
hear, yeah, like to hear more development on the Vishwamiti project. I'm from Vadodara, and of course, it's a great initiative, and we are seeing us change as of now. That's a great change.
Yeah. It is a long story. We can make another presentation about Vishwamitra some other day.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for
Okay,
your
thank you.
question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is from Rekha Bhaskaran. Why is it the cleaning and reclamation of Indian rivers like Jamna Ji has been a failure?
You tell me. It is the similar stories everywhere. I begin always with values and end in experiences. What do we value? Let us get a consensus on that. Of course, without power, we don't have the capacity to get a value-based consensus. But that is why movements are important. That is why awareness campaigns and Lage Raho Munna Bhai are important. So Jamuna case, as especially as it passes through Delhi, who is the owner? Is Delhi Municipal Corporation the owner? Is Jal Board is the owner? Is DDA the owner? Who takes where does the buck stop? Is Jal Shakti Mantralaya the owner? Is something happening upstream that is not good? Is something happening through the lateral connections of other nalas that join that join Jamuna? So the failure is not something that we should talk as a failure because that again defeats our spirit. What we should recognize that it is a wicked problem. We need to refocus, retell the story. Oh, this is such an important river mythologically, religiously, all things. So how do we rephrase it? Is that we have to understand that all these stakeholders, all these different kind of ecosystem that are part of Jamuna, they present us with great challenge as well as a great opportunity. And instead of pointing fingers, we can say that, okay, what is common thread that is through all the stakeholders? Once you identify the common thread, let us then build upon that. There is another great book called Barriers and Bridges to Ecosystem and Organization Renewal. It's a great book. And it talks about how renewal in organizations and ecosystems can happen by understanding the barriers and bridges. We understand barriers, but we do not focus on the bridges that are hidden or apparent in a system. So let us first identify the positives, the bridges,
What is
get the
the
strength from it to cross the barriers.
what is the author's name, sir?
Oh, this is
CS Hawley.
Henderson
I've
Light.
met
It is an edited book by three great
CS Hawley, Lance
scientists.
H. Gunderson, and Stephen Light.
Yeah.
I've
Okay. The next talk is from Shelly Jain. I'm a landscape designer, and every time we are designing, I've been told to design human-centric, and we are creating spaces for them. But the moment we add
Yes.
humans, the space and environment is exploited. What do you think is ideal way to design spaces without affecting ecologies?
Just say yes to your client and do your thing.
Got
In
it.
the sense, in the sense that as a professional, we have to fulfill what the client's needs, the requirements. But we should not blindly accept those requirements. Our role is not only that of a designer, our role is that of an educator and advocate also. As professionals, We are not there to cater to all the whims and requirements of and we may not win every battle. But do your thorough landscape analysis, identify the patterns and processes that are important from an ecological point of view, and just talk about what you are fulfilling the client's need. It took me 4 different levels of presentations with this multinational corporation in Indian. I can give the name, Suzlon Corporation, the windmill people. It took me 4 different levels of being at it. First, it was a 4 page letter PDF with certain examples, and then it was a discussion. Then it was further discussion with larger group of people, and there I made a presentation. And then it was like a meeting at the corporate headquarters. And the way to do this is to nudge their ego, find out something about the client. So in my case, that client happened to be a member of a nature club in his previous city. And I came to know that everybody is a nature lover. So when I suggested a way that you might be the only windmill company of an SEZ where you value nature. Powering a greener future is the tagline. So powering a greener future on a green campus. So it takes us, our knowledge and our perseverance to educate and then gradually win over the client and say, oh yes, this is what I will achieve. It should be owned by the client. It should not be like imposition by us on the client. And it takes time. It takes experience also. It takes good examples. And just you are in a beautiful discipline called landscape architecture. And its basis is land. Landscape is a compound word. Land is the larger concept of ecological systems. And scape is not view. Scape is in partnership with. So our discipline is about in partnership with land, shaping it with knowledge and care and creativity.
Next question from Dan Send. To protect the Red River and rare fish, China destroyed 300 dams, shut down hydropower stations. Is that a good ecological decision?
Now there is you're talking about the Chinese example, right? That big dam demolition and the other 300 dams. It is not just China. China has come into news recently because of the scale at which they are doing. Dams have been decommissioned in other countries for other reasons also. I mean, for ecological reasons or environmental reasons. So this is not the first time. It is just that China happens to be our neighbor. China also has a way of promoting their work. So decommissioning dams is something that requires a lot of study, as I said, consequences. But the consequences are based on acceptance of consequences are based on values, which value you want to promote or you want to uphold. So if a trout fish migration is important and if a dam is a barrier to that migration, then we have to convince the government, or the government gets convinced by experts' input, policymakers, and then the steps begin to happen. So now the question is, what will happen to hydroelectricity? So China is also installing the biggest solar panel alternative energy source. So it is not that it is doing something bad for its economy. Actually, by removing the dams, it is going to promote a different kind of alternative and economy based on a healthier ecosystem. It will create livelihoods of different kinds. It will restore quality of landscape and quality of life. So apparently, when we look at the superficial news and don't dig deeper and look at all the lateral and vertical connections to that news, we kind of get stuck in these headlines, not the consequences, positive and